radicalization of kids is happening all around the world, and Disney seems to be very involved in it. And
Indeed.
yeah, so um, we had going to the far side of the world now. I sent an email to our Moriel administrator in New Zealand and making sure he was okay after this earthquake, that
Yes.
he's not too far south of Auckland, where they had a 6.1 earthquake. But they also had two cyclones, one after another, that has done great damage to the North Island. Well, he said that he is okay, the family is okay, and he said it's put a lot of people at unease, and he's thankful for this because he's getting to witness to people, because people are wanting to know what's going on.
Indeed.
Why are all these things happening? Jacob, can you speak to why is this time different a bit?
Commenting on the Olivet Discourse back in the 1970s, I recall David Wilkerson, who I didn't know well, but I knew him, and I was friends with his son Gary. And I remember David Wilkerson saying back then that God was going to use weather changes and natural disasters to get people's attention. Remember, preach the gospel of the kingdom, which is the message that repent, not just repent, but repent, Jesus is coming. And God is going to use natural phenomena, disasters, meteorology, weather-related disasters to get people's attention. That there's going to be an increase in weather changes, an increase in these disasters. And of course, he was basing this on a vision that he said God gave him, but the vision was very much in harmony with the Olivet Discourse. I had no problem with it. I rarely disagreed with David Wilkerson. Once in a while I disagreed, but generally I agreed with him. And what he said back then is happening. You're beginning to see the continuation of the rate of increase of seismic activity has been steady. But New Zealand, I knew my way around central Christchurch. I was so familiar with Christchurch, New Zealand, I didn't need a local to drive me around. I knew where I was going, that at least to the places that I had to get to and things like that. I went back there after the earthquakes, there was two of them, destroyed that city. I couldn't recognize the place. I couldn't recognize the place. The whole place was destroyed. I couldn't recognize it. That was in New Zealand. Now that's the South Island. Now it's the North Island. The thing about New Zealand is similar to the United States. It's different than Australia, and it's different than Canada. It's similar to the United States and similar to Great Britain and similar to South Africa. It has a strong biblical heritage. The Plymouth Brethren movement were huge. The first white people, who the Maoris called Pakeha, they made a treaty with the Maoris. They didn't seize the land per se. They made a treaty with them, but they brought the gospel to New Zealand. It had a strong Christian foundation as a nation and a society. It wasn't like convicts or Irish Republicans who the British wanted to get rid of, like Australia. It was not like Canada that was French, captured by the British and so on. It wasn't like that. It was more like the United States, more like Great Britain, and more like South Africa. Despite the injustices of apartheid, there was still a strong biblical influence in that society. And it is a nation that has basically almost completely turned its back on its biblical heritage. And it really did have one. It really did have one. Christ was widely believed in New Zealand.